talk among yourselves, I'll come with a bottle.
Ooh.
Okay.
I'm fascinated by what this is.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome.
Oh yeah, Yann is currently fetching a wine. As a throwback to we won't be getting as smashed as we were in the Goodyear episode. That was ridiculous. We did an episode with another actor friend of ours where we we tried some of Yann's lovely vineyard wine, but we didn't have like test size glasses. It was essentially boiled down to like 9 glasses of wine in 3 hours. It was an episode.
There are the bottles.
Yeah, there's some leftovers up there.
Okay.
I think we finished all of the white, and we've only got the reds left. And we've got the dessert wine as well, the smaller bottle as well. But all lovely.
I don't remember that.
Do you not remember the episode? Wow.
No, not really.
I actually remember feeling quite fresh the day after. That must be a good quality wine because there's not any rubbish in it to make me feel super hungover.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
That was some fun. Hello.
Yann, how are you?
Nice cap.
Where have you been?
I love dairy. Great.
Is this like a Trump America?
Well, his hat says "Make Haggis" great again.
So that's Scotland.
That's Scotland, and I love dairy.
Which reminds me of Stephen King.
Well, it's the town from it.
Yeah, yes, thank you. He also uses dairy, Maine all the time.
Yeah, Maine's his favourite state. It's like everything seems to go wrong in Maine in the Stephen King novel.
I think that's where he's based, right?
I think I think he's definitely from Maine, or at least in the northeast.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So I got to make haggis great again because it's
What's wrong with haggis in the first
it's
place?
perfectly suitable.
You've just been eating the wrong haggis.
This is our very first movie directed by Clint Eastwood, who is a huge MAGA fan, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. So today we are also introducing again. We'll be tasting some wine today. Again.
Only one bottle this time. Only one.
Just one bottle. This one is called a cuvée Fontfresque. The size, I mean the shape of that bottle is different. It's kind of a Bourgogne shape.
Mm.
The other ones were taller and slimmer.
Mm-hmm.
This one is special. It's a rosé which was aged in oak barrels, the full volume for a year.
Nice.
Yes, that's the one I want to convert Mira with. So I got this bottle and another one for later.
Our friend is from Italy and she thinks rosé is like a really bad thing.
Right.
Like, it's not wine. So
please try this.
Yeah.
I guess we're all kind of biased. Like for me, prosecco is not champagne.
No.
No, yeah.
I kind of agree.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's kick things off with this. I think it's safe to say that for any typical French person, and by typical I mean with a severe case of adambliviousness, not unaware.
Excuse me. What?
Not unaware of Anouk's advances in this case, but totally oblivious to the difference between UK, Great Britain, Northern Ireland, Scotland. These people then may not understand Adam's position on the World Cup. My friend, are you not happy to see England so far down in the football rabbit hole?
God almighty, this is gonna. If we have any English listeners, this will really discredit it. But there's a saying in most of Wales, Ireland, and Scotland that's like anyone but England, and I mostly apply that to rugby because England rugby is just it's its own thing. It's like super big, but they just don't shut up about it. In fairness, they win a lot, so that's why it's constant. But whenever you get coverage here, it's always the commentators say "we," and it's like, but it's not we. I'm in Scotland. I'm not necessarily supporting England.
That's a good point.
So I get more annoyed by, and I think it's the case for most Scottish people. I mean, you will find people that don't like the team because the rivalry between England and Scotland is deeper than just sport. But for my case, it's definitely to do with coverage rather than the actual nation.
And it's not we anyway. You're just commenting or sitting on your ass in front of your TV.
Yeah,
it's not we.
It's more
the players are doing it.
Yeah, I know. It's mostly because I think a lot of commentators you get, especially in BBC, are ex-England football players. You get a lot of the time. There is another coverage that actually does have a Scottish commentator on it, which is quite interesting, but he's never on any England game. Surprise, surprise.
Shocking. Shocking.
But you guys are doing all right. France is in the final.
France is going to win.
France is in the final.
Yeah,
France is going to win. They're so good.
I actually watched my first game last night.
Oh,
Yeah,
what
it
a
was
game
my
to
very
start
first
with.
Yeah, it's a good game.
Not bad.
I haven't, but I think I don't have a choice anymore. I need to watch the final now.
I've got an idea. So one of the best players on the French team right now is Mbappe, who is 19. He's like going to be the next superstar in football. So I've got an idea. Each one of us, what were you doing at 19? If this guy's in the semi-final scoring goals for France as a nation in his second game at 19.
I know I had the most amazing set of hair at 19.
Yeah.
What was I doing at 19? I just started ACS. Actually, to be fair, 19 is not that long ago for me. That's like 3 years. So, yeah, meeting you two actually is what I was doing about 19.
Yeah, but you were at least furthering your career. I think I was a part-time nanny, like working and going out every night.
London girl.
Getting absolutely blasted. So, yeah. You know, me and Mbappe, we're kind of the same.
What about you, Francis?
Let me serve.
I think I was in 19, yeah, so I must have been in first year of bachelor's degree in English literature, because at that time I thought I was going to be an English teacher, which now I'm doing something completely different. So, but you know, it's never too late. I mean,
No, of course not.
You could maybe be the next Mbappe if you wanted to. But it's never too late.
I know.
Football.
I got a lot of work to do if I want to be the next Mbappe, sorry.
I mean, someone will just need to throw a balloon at not at your face, but at your feet, and then just like if it was cymbals, and then it will like launch you into the. So, let me get the wines into your cups now.
Okay. Can we not have a full glass?
Start off small.
Can we have a start kind of?
Yeah.
You pass it over, I'll give it over.
Because it's.
Make sure I have the sound.
Pass it back down
Still
the
a
line.
lot, but okay. Oh, for God's sake, Anouk.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There you go, that's a small one for you.
Thank you.
So you guys can have the sound, but they won't have the taste.
While I'm doing that,
No.
I will display something on the screen for our online viewers. Right, so now you can see
For God's
I've introduced a new word in the English language. So, oblivious, adjective, not aware of or concerned about the heavy flirting from one's scene partner during rehearsals. Anouk was really into that guy, but he was completely oblivious to her antics.
Oh my days.
Oh no. I don't know how I feel about people knowing that I was flirting with someone through rehearsal. It's probably really unprofessional.
I don't know how I feel about being totally oblivious. now it's a noun. Sorry, an adjective even.
That's hilarious.
Oh dear.
You were totally oblivious.
Oh, I don't deny that at all. I do not deny that at all.
It might be my fault. I might just be really terrible at flirting.
Maybe we're a horrible combo.
Yeah, we just shouldn't be together.
So while I was away preparing the wine, and did you introduce Francis properly?
No, we didn't.
Oh, you just started.
Because we're really
Discuss
bad.
the wine.
So Francis is back with us. Well, it was Maximiliano the first time for the Prestige. Now we have Francis Girola.
Hello.
Hello. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Welcome.
You're here with us in your quality of a member of Sonic Winter and friend and many other things. What's new in your Sonic Winter life, my friend?
Well, so since last time that I came here, I think, was it in January or something, or February?
End of January.
Sounds right.
End of January. So I was just about to release a single, which came out in mid-February, called Blank. And so, so basically we're preparing a new album. So we've basically got, all the material we need for a new album. We just want to release, one single at a time. So it's going to be a new. So if you don't know Sonic Winter, the concept is like it's like a virtual band. Well, we call it a band, but the core is a duo between myself and a friend of mine who is in Paris, a guitar player. And then we collaborate with plenty of different people from all around the world, depending on the project that we have. And it's people that we've never met in real life. We don't even know what they look like. Like the guy on Blank who sings is a rapper from London. Never met him before. I just know what he sounds like. I really liked his voice, so I just I sampled his voice. We collaborate with musicians from Sweden, the US. So yeah, it's a pretty cool project. It's a lot of hard work because it's it's like an auto production. So yeah, we'll just try to give the best that we can. Yeah. So that's pretty much what's new with Sonic Winter right now. So we're preparing new things. I don't know when the next single is going to come out. In fact, we're not quite sure which one we're going to bring out first. But we've got some new exciting stuff, new sound as well. So more electro-based. Originally it was more like classic rock, but this time it's going to be more electronic-based. Cool. So
very cool.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And so we know that you've been living in Glasgow for almost 10 years, but it's about to change, isn't it?
Yes. So I'm going to a different country.
Technicalities.
There you go.
Yeah. So basically, after 9 years in Glasgow, I will be moving down to London because that's where my fiance and I will be based. So after 2 years of going backwards and forwards, but to and fro with Africa, because that's where she was based. So now we'll finally be on the same continent.
Yeah, way.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, I'm quite happy about that. But that means that I'm gonna have to leave Glasgow, unfortunately. So yeah.
Well, congrats on the fiancé then. First.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheers to
Yeah,
that.
that's a good
Yes.
cheers.
Santé.
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 Yes. Ting! Something. So, now tell you the story of a little boy who was born in Aix-en-Provence in 1979.
Okay.
And as his dad was moving a lot with the work, they moved. So he started in Provence. They moved in Paris, and then when that little boy started to have the Parisian accent, they said, "Oh no, we'll move in the center of France, Touraine." And
Ouch.
in the house where that family stayed for years and years, the longest really, like 20 years. And in that living room, there was a mezzanine. And in the mezzanine, on one of the ceiling, because it was kind of a triangular ceiling, so on one of the sides, there was a poster of bird. And a few days ago, that little boy, who is now a full-ass grown man, me, just asked my dad, well, there's been this poster there for like more than 30 years now. Why? And he had the best answer ever. It was just there.
Oh,
The
wow.
best anticlimactic thing ever.
Wow.
So I was imagining there must have been a reason for, and so I always avoided to watch the movie for some obscure reason or item. So now I watched it, and that's the subject of this episode: 1988 Clint Eastwood movie Bird,
Oh my gosh.
starring
Forrest Whitaker, Diane Venora, Michael Zelnicka, Samuel E. Wright, Keith David, and Michael Maguire. I mean, the list goes on, but yeah.
So we'll talk about Whiplash at some point. You know the central story that Fletcher, the anecdote that he tells most of the time, that Joe Jones that threw the symbol at the head of young Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
Well, you got something that is way more real and how it happened in this movie.
Yeah.
It was kind of an open mic, and there was Charlie Parker, and he messed things up. So the drummer threw the cymbal, but at his feet, not at his face.
Not at his head, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that sounds super dangerous. A little bit dangerous.
Well, maybe they were inspired by the George W. Bush and the shoe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
Maybe that's what inspired Whiplash. I don't know.
That was a good video.
I watched it for the first time yesterday, and there was something at one point. His wife, before she is his wife, says, "You're a mind reader."
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think about the notoriety, because the guy is struggling with his own problems. He's massively popular. Everyone wants to be with him, which reminded me of a story we had, and I really understood and gathered how powerful that can be when we were at Mines a few weekends ago, and some people wanted to know what you were doing for a living, Francis.
Yes. Yeah. So, wow. So have you got a question for me? So you want me to?
No, it's indeed no. How? Because you from the outside it felt weird because it felt like I was with a superstar in the bar, and people was just like kind of not harassing, but like getting into again. I want to maybe
Right. Well, I guess maybe we should put things in context. So basically, we were at the bar, and we're in Newcastle, which is, I've learned that this is the number one place in the UK for stag do's, and
it's up there. Yeah.
And so
Is
there
that
was.
where you're going?
Yeah, that's where we're going. Yeah.
From London all the way up to Newcastle for one night.
Yeah.
Where Francis is a superstar on his stag do.
Because you're such a lad.
No, so we're actually there on the mentalism convention, which is even more weird when you think about it. Like a convention of mind readers. But so we were at the bar, we're just ordering a drink, and so there's this a group of guys who are obviously there on the stag do, and who had obviously had quite a bit to drink beforehand, and I usually have a doctor's bag, and like a 3-piece suit, and so one of the guys was looking at me and is like, "So are you a doctor?" I'm like, "No, I'm not a doctor." Is it because of the bag? He said, "Yeah." Well. So he's like, "What are you?" And I said, "Well, guess." And he said, "Well, are you like Sherlock Holmes or something?" And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, I guess maybe kind of close." Yeah. The thing is, I didn't really want to say like mind reader or mentalist or
Because immediately they're gonna go, "Oh, do a trick."
Yes.
What am I thinking right now?
Yeah, show me something.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really want to do something because I was just I just wanted to order a drink and that's it. Especially it was like after a long day at the convention. So, But in the end, so I did show something, and it was quite it was pretty cool. And then some other guys from the convention as well came, a German hypnotist as well. So it was pretty cool. Yeah. So, but yes, when it's one of those jobs that when you say you're a magician or you're a mentalist or mind reader, well, I know that mentalist is a bit of a double meaning, so I don't usually say mentalist in the UK. But when you say mind reader, people say, "Well, can you show me something?" Whereas when you say, "Well, I'm an accountant," people don't say, "Well, can you just have a look at my bills?" For
Do maths really quickly.
That's my favourite thing when people would say, "I'm an actor." It's like, "Oh, what have you been in?" It's like you wouldn't ask an accountant. It's like, "Oh, whose taxes do you do?"
You can't be very good.
Yeah, I like that magicians also go for accountants as well. I like that too. Accountants are just the rag on people. It's like, accountant wouldn't do this.
And
has
anybody asked you? So can you act something for me? Can you show me something?
The weirdest one I've got is like somebody saying, "Oh, do something for us." I'm like, "What do you mean do something for you?" It's like acting is you can't just do it. Well, you could. I mean, you could recite a monologue, but that just makes you like weird. It's like it's not like with magic. Obviously, you set it up, and say if you're a card magician, it's like, okay, I've got a pack, and you can take that moment to set it up as an actual like performance. But for an actor in public, it's not really possible. A musician as well. It's like you take an instrument, you get that second of like taking it out to like people are ready for it.
You obviously get the what could have I been seeing you in?
Yeah.
Like, did I see you in somewhere? So now I think I'll just start to bullshit. Like, yeah, and Braveheart, I was William Wallace. Don't you remember?
That was me.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
No.
Yeah, with the Scottish guy with a French accent. Yeah.
I
If somebody's
usually,
drunk enough, they'll believe anything you say. Oh, like I was in this, and they'll believe you. You just have to believe it yourself.
I usually get angry though. I'm usually like, do you recognize me? No. Shut up.
Big kudos to all our magic friends in Busan right now, South Korea. There is the FISM at the moment, which
Oh,
is
nice.
every 3 years the World Championship of Magic,
Oh, wow.
which
Wow.
is where Paul is right now,
Oh, awesome.
Oh, very cool.
and plenty of other friends. Yeah, last one was in Italy. This one is a bit farther, so
Is it a
so
competition or is it
cool.
a convention?
it's mostly a competition. Yeah,
Oh, wow. So is Paul performing?
I don't
is he-
know
we
what
don't know.
he's coming to do there, but yeah, sometimes he's booked. I don't know for this one specifically.
Best of luck if you're performing, Paul. Best of luck with that. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's competing. No, because it's mostly novel, new acts.
Ah,
I
right,
mean,
okay.
I mean, he was. Let me see. Was he? Yeah, I think he was booked. Well, the last FISM in Rimini, Italy, was booked as a lecturer.
Ah,
I was.
okay.
Yeah, I saw his lecture at the time. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
Okay, so this film is more than 2 hours and a half.
Yeah.
It's a longin.
There was one thing at one point I was just like, eh? The Paris matte painting.
I knew you were going to pick up on that.
The I don't know if it's supposed to be a painting or it's supposed to be someone filming Paris from above.
I hope it's not somebody filming, because that looks atrocious. It's
Yeah.
like a bunch of lights and then like, oh, there's a triangular shape that is clearly meant to be the Eiffel Tower. It's
So-
just- nah.
The structure is
Can't
clearly.
remember that.
I don't remember this.
It's 1 second. Really.
It's a cutaway. It's, it's
before
established that he's now in Paris
Yeah.
performing.
And it's a bit like San Francisco, The Room kind of thing. But in here, it looks like a weird kitsch with the blinking lights painting of Paris from above. It's weird.
Oh dear. I must say that I missed quite a lot in this film, and I actually really enjoyed it afterwards. Like during, I was like, this is quite slow, and you really need to focus. But actually, some of the scenes have really stayed with me, so I can't say that it's a bad film or it's standard. Like it's not at all. I think you just have to be in the right frame of mind.
I mean, I was 3 cocktails deep by the time we got to the end of this.
Well, to be honest, I clicked on the button to check what how many times was left, at least 10 times.
Oh, wow.
But
okay.
that it's only because I watched it between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. in
Oh,
the
Right.
But
Play.
that's why, because the first hour I didn't feel the need to. Okay, how long left?
I definitely agree with that. It's very confusing to begin with, for sure. It's like, wait, what? Because they go for this jumping around narrative where we flash back and up to date. We start with we see it's even weird at the start. So we start seeing him as a child playing a saxophone, or is that just are we to assume that that's Charlie Parker, or are we to? Or
I
is that
think
just
that
a
is
random
supposed
guy?
to be Charlie Parker.
Right. Okay, so we start with Charlie Parker playing, then we flash forward to him like in a nightclub, then we continue to the present day where he's going home to see his wife and then trying to commit suicide via iodine poisoning.
Yeah.
And then that's how we start the film. I'm like, right, okay, wow, this is a heavy start. And then we throughout the film we jump back and forward, and it's never clearly established where we are
Yeah.
at any time.
Reminds me a bit of what Jean-Luc Godard was saying. You know, a story needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, but not necessarily in that order.
My
You know.
favourite
Yeah.
quote from David Mamet is reciting that quote and then going, which is why French movies are terrible.
Oh,
I'm like, oh, Mamet.
so harsh. And
Well,
not true. I don't.
I'm not
agree
true.
with
I definitely agree with not true.
I would. Well, yeah. Well, obviously, a generalization is always bad, but you know,
that. Yeah.
because you know, it's very difficult to define French films. Like how could you define American films? You know, we've got so many differences. But yeah, I'm not necessarily a big fan of the newest, I mean, the latest films right now.
I had a thought the other day because we briefly talked about we talked about Neverending Story and we just talked about Ghostbusters yesterday actually, and I was thinking to myself, there hasn't really been a movie that had a major impact on like a generation of people like Ghostbusters since that. So like 84 in the 80s there was films that like established major franchises or like major fandoms, like even with Batman with Tim Burton. Like that introduced Batman to a whole new generation, got people reading comics. I'm like, has there really been a film that's stuck with people recently?
I think time has to be a factor here, though, because my cousin is at the moment at St Andrews studying history and its ideas, and it's basically about nostalgia of golden eras and how interesting that is, because obviously at the time you're not going to be thinking this is a golden era.
We're in a golden age.
Yeah.
This is the golden age. Like it has to be like this is the boom, because that's not how humans work. But when you think back, it's like, oh yeah, wasn't the 80s amazing? Wasn't this amazing? But I'm sure in 2050 they'll probably think back and say, you know what, 2018 was a great year for movies.
To once again mention Lindsay Ellis, our favourite YouTuber, apparently, because we keep mentioning her all the time. She did a great video on the 30-year cycle, which is essentially every 30 years you look back to go, oh, that was the best time. Which is why like Stranger Things and all the 80s is super popular now, because it's like 30 years ago to now. So it's going to keep continuing. So in 2020, we're going to look back at the 90s and have lots of 90s-inspired cinema and music and all that sort of thing. Which I'm excited for nightclub life, because the 90s had it nailed compared to nowadays with nightlife. For me, it's music-wise for sure.
She has a nice bit about the separating the art from the artist, which I will quote when the next Ghostbusters episode comes.
I will say, to my own point of like, has there been a movie since Ghostbusters? For me, Trainspotting in '96. I think that's the
Lord
last.
of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, early 2000s. I mean, yeah.
But since then,
Not in my adult life. I don't think I've seen anything.
Well, I think I would agree with that whole cycle theory, but on the other hand, I think that this present era, I mean, you were talking about nostalgia. I think, we're kind of stuck. I think we've been stuck over the past 10 years at least in some kind of a nostalgia. It was the 1990s, then 1980s. Not just, in films, but I think, in arts in general. Like, look at music. Like, for example, Bruno Mars is just the king of nostalgia.
That's very true. That's very true.
He's got some very nice music, but it's not really new. I mean, it could have come out in the 1970s or 80s, And so it's quite difficult to... I mean, I don't think that people in the 1980s were thinking, oh, let's do something just like, the guys back in the 1950s were doing.
No,
They were trying to do something completely new, just find some, break out of the mold. But I don't think we've had like a whole movement. We might find some exceptions, like some directors or some artists who want to do something a bit unique, but have a whole movement like the whole of the 1980s or like the French New Wave or this kind of thing. It's kind of difficult to define right now.
Yeah, especially with music, because you think of the sounds of the 50s, the sound of the 60s, 70s, 80s. Like they all have their distinct sound. Be it 60s with the Beatles, 70s with Led Zeppelin and the Who, 80s with all the electronic music coming out, ABBA, so on and forth. When you think 2000, 2010, I'm really struggling to think of a sound. Because I grew up in the mid 2000s, I think of like 2000 rock. I could maybe nail that, but anything after like 2006, I'm really struggling to think of like an individual sound to music.
Okay, maybe not a movement, but there was definitely, so like Back to the Future was in the 80s and they were traveling back to the 50s. This film we're talking about was released in '88, and it's about the mid 40s.
Yeah.
Maybe not starting movements, but there are definitely some movies that are going back to a few years and those eras.
Yeah.
I mean, Charlie Parker's credited with moving forward in bebop. For sure.
Yeah.
And
but
they even have that at the end of the film with him seeing like a rock, not a rock and roll, but like the beginning of rock. like in a performance and going like, he's stunned of how different it is.
That
not him it is.
That scene is one of the scenes I was talking about that will stay with me. It was somehow so sad to watch this guy that had just pretty much been ruined by heroin addiction and his own demons, and seeing that the world had kind of moved on and he still is kind of stuck and knows that he could never do what this other guy is doing. I'm not sure who that person was supposed to be. Was that supposed to be Dizzy Gillespie, his partner?
The guy who's
Rock and rolling.
Yeah, I don't think it was, because the name was not this at the moment. I wasn't sure, so I extra focused on the listening. I don't think it was.
I will try and find out.
I think it might have been someone that he obviously had worked with before.
There is an interesting dynamic there that I really never wondered or really realized before. The segregation went both ways.
Oh yeah.
Albino red. When you had, so there's that one scene when he's the only one to go to the white only shop to get the everything, and the scene right after that, everyone is getting in except and him is hiding to hide his whiteness.
That would have been obviously started by white people, though. I think that's most of the problem. So but I think that's kind of the same thing with everything. It's like if you segregate yourself from a certain group of people, they're also going to start segregating as well, because there's anger. But that's a reaction rather than something that you start with.
Yeah. It makes sense. Obviously, it's just that I never really thought about this.
No, you don't.
It was pretty clear in this film.
Yeah.
Which was quite interesting. There is maybe it's a language thing. I didn't get wait. Can you hear a weird hiss in the sound? No. Anyway, sometimes Charlie Parker says about kicking. I can't kick. What's that about?
He means his heroin addiction.
Okay.
I think that's what that would imply to, like kicking his habits, i.e. like all the alcohol or.
I can't kick it.
Yeah, anything you're addicted to is known as kicking.
Okay.
I think I need to watch this film again. I probably should have done that before the podcast, but I think I need to see it twice.
I don't know. I think execution-wise, there are things that are kind of missed in this, but it's definitely an interesting story to tell, and they want to tell it. I think that's the issue: is how well do they tell it? Is the thing we're questioning? Is like, was this film good or not? I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, but did I enjoy it? Yes, but after a certain point, I feel there's definitely a hill to get over at some point in this. What Yann described earlier with him checking, like, how long is this going for? But that was the same case for me with Call Me By Your Name, and that was well worth finishing the entire film.
Yeah.
But I have to be, the first time I checked the time, already 45 minutes passed, so it went quite. Oh, okay.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So I was a bit surprised that.
But I think for me it's quite difficult to say. I mean, to judge if a film is good or bad. I mean, you can say some films are definitely bad. But this one, I think, it would be difficult for me to say. Well, I mean, I really enjoyed it as well. But what interests me the most is the intention behind it, because it's a biopic, but I don't think to bounce back on what Yann was saying, I don't think that it was a film, even though it obviously concentrates on it. I mean, it focuses on past events. I don't think that it's a film that is necessarily looking back. It's more about showing the importance of that man and how he's actually still topical in the present, showing his I mean, like at the very last scene, you can see the credits, saying how much of an inspiration he still is today for jazzmen. So I think that maybe the intention was to sort of not just pay homage to Charlie Parker, but also to show what an inspiration he is in the present day.
I know for production value, because I read up on this, that this film was a difficult setup. Like they had the idea for it, and originally it was going to be, instead of Forrest Whitaker, Richard Pryor. But
Right.
the story rights were traded between two companies. I can't remember the other company, but they got the rights to the Kevin Costner film Revenge, I think, is what they traded this for. And then it took too many years to get it up and going after the deal was settled that Richard Pryor wasn't interested anymore. So it was always fraught with difficulty to get this made, which I don't know if that affects the actual execution of some things. It might do, because it might be totally down to not knowing where it was going. But the overall message is very positive, and it's weird. I've never watched the film going like mostly like 3/4 of the way through, going like, I don't know if I like this film or not, and then getting to the end of the film and going, I like the message this film is telling me, even though I wasn't invested the whole way through. It's a new experience for me, actually.
I mean, at the core of this, there is a terrible tragedy.
Of course.
Surviving your child is a natural, should never happen.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
It's in my mind one of the most recent tragedy of the kind. Unfortunately, it's not in English, but it's a couple of books that were made into movies. Jean de Florette, Manon des Sources, Manon of the Springs, and Jean de Florette. It's a familial. It's a tragedy around those themes, and I mean, I didn't see, to be honest, any other message that in this one, other than because the kid thing, because it's not that clear as it is in Whiplash, even though they completely modified the anecdote that whatever you'll be back. Whatever the fear of falling, so you failed at one point. Everybody was laughing, and it was not about that film. I felt.
No.
Was it? No.
I guess not. I did feel though that, especially at the end when Clint Eastwood, I'm guessing, put, this is for musicians everywhere. It's kind of about someone who was addicted to heroin, which obviously is the hardest thing to give up and also totally destroys your life, and it's kind of the only thing you can think about. But also, I think it's a creative mind who is thrust into the business world, because obviously music is like that, and acting has the same problem. And I thought that the film showed that really well, that this is someone who also just wants to play his instrument and doesn't really understand why he isn't allowed to, and why he needs to be on time or be a certain person or act a certain way. He just wants to go on stage and play.
I think there's a great scene that highlights the whole business versus creative side, is when Chan, his wife, asks him, is like, where's the money? You've sold so many records. And he goes, I made them, but somebody else sold them.
Yeah.
And it just highlights, it's like, yeah.
That's really interesting.
Even now, especially nowadays as well, it's musicians make their money by touring. You don't make major money off of record sales. I don't think, and it seems that
people don't even buy records anymore.
That's very true as well. It's the invention of Spotify. Spotify kind of destroyed the online pirating of music, which is a good thing, but it also took away people buying records, which is sad, because so many people design their records to be listened to in a specific order. I mean, that's a lost art of putting down your tracks in a certain order to maybe tell a story, or just what you want to convey to your audience. It's kind of lost now with Spotify, because everything is automatically shuffled if you're listening on a phone.
Yeah.
There's also this thing that was really the bane for I'm not sure you ever heard about this guy, but he was kind of the Beatles of France, pretty much. Johnny Hallyday.
I have not.
I have not.
Yeah, there was kind of national mourning when he died a few years ago, and
last year actually.
Last year.
Oh wow.
And the guy, maybe in the later years, but he never owned any of his music. It was just performing.
Yeah.
It
that-
was the biggest performer in France for 40 years, and well, it didn't die without a penny, but it was, you know, when you have a manager and you need money. It's just always you need money at that time to get that thing. You don't really care about about anything really.
Mm.
It was just, you know, oh, I need the money for that time. You don't really care about saving or anything.
No.
Exactly the opposite that U2 did. They own everything they are putting out.
Yeah. Yeah, because they were able to give away their own music for free.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't be able to do that if it was if a company owned it. It's like, no, we want to make money off this, which is why, I mean, everyone had the thing of like, I didn't want U2 on my iPod, and it automatically just downloaded it for you instead of like asking, do you want this? But that was an interesting experiment, music wise, of like, here's this music, listen to it if you want. And that album actually wasn't that bad. I quite enjoyed that U2 album that everyone got for free if you had an Apple product.
Yeah, It's I watched Leon again a few days ago. That's exactly the same dynamic. The guy is so focused on his plant and killing people that he doesn't really realize how money works. So he relies on kind of a manager. And when Matilda comes and he needs money, his kind of friend manager is asking questions. Well, are you sure you really want money? It's a big, like, weird dynamic. Yeah, I'm in charge of your money. Are you sure you really want? Yeah, but that's supposed to be his money in the first place.
Yeah.
I think there's always a fine line. I mean, it's always quite difficult for an artist to to make money, because I think that a lot of artists think that making money out of your art is almost like a swear word. Like you shouldn't be thinking about making money because you're doing art. But I think that this is BS, because at the end of the day, if you've got bills to pay, and so I don't think that thinking about money is necessarily going against art. Think about the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, for example. I mean, he was paid to do it, but you wouldn't say that it's not art.
Yeah,
That's very true.
But I think I think that this type of a film actually really shows this myth of an artist needs to suffer for the art, which I think that is not necessarily true. And I think that it really, that film kind of shows if this is what you want, well, here's what you might end up with, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows you the human with his faults and stuff
Exactly.
behind the legend.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking today actually, because I saw that they'd sold Cristiano Ronaldo for 150 million euros to Juventus, and I was thinking, it's like, if we take what you said with the Sistine Chapel, it shouldn't equate that the amount of money you receive as an artist dictates how good the art is. It should be like, the money is, yes, everyone's got to pay the bills, but if you're that talented, it shouldn't be like, I make this amount of money so I can make this amazing thing. It's like, if you're an artist, you should be able to present what your gift is and be paid for it within reason.
And it's kind of not like that. I mean, you only have to watch Sugar Man, the documentary.
Yes,
I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
No. Rodriguez.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Really interesting. But basically, it's this guy who didn't do very well in America, but did really well in South Africa. But of course, had no idea that he'd done so well, and he was like a legend. And he was kind of the voice of civil rights when the apartheid and all that stuff was happening. So he was kind of this god in a way for people that just wanted to live together and fuck segregation and all of that.
It's even worse as well, because you think of this music and you listen to it, it goes like, he's Bob Dylan before Bob Dylan was around.
Yeah, but basically he was living
he's like a Mexican Bob Dylan. It's absolutely incredible music, and he only ever made 2 albums because they both underperformed, but like Anouk said, they were huge in South Africa. And then the film covers people in South Africa don't know what happened to him. It's like, how come he only made 2 albums? And then it shows you like what his life was like in America, and it unfolds from there. I won't spoil any of the twists in the film. because it's absolutely worth watching.
Yeah, it's sold as
It's-
a documentary film, kind of more.
Yeah.
It's and then the music is really, indeed, really, really good.
It's
Yeah.
an exceptional film.
It's well made, but basically just that he was a legend in so many people's eyes, but he was dirt poor in Detroit, America, and even though he didn't care about money, it's just the thought that, you know, it's not the same. Like money equals success, success equals money. It's when it comes to artists especially, that's absolute bullshit.
Yeah. The film is Searching for Sugar Man, or is it Sugar Ray? No,
No,
Sugar
it's
Man.
Looking for Sugar or Searching for
Searching
Sugar
for
Man.
Sugar Man
Yeah,
is the
yeah, yeah.
documentary. It's well worth watching.
We
Yeah,
have it actually.
We
Because
have it, we
I
can-
said it to Nick the other day, it's like with any other form of art, be it if you make burgers or you make bread, right? That's an art form to people. Like if it's a service, people will pay for it. But as soon as it becomes a creative decision, it's like people seem to just don't want to pay for it. Really,
Yeah.
you know.
It's because it's so normalized, and I think a lot of people think that it's easy or something that you can do.
Or a hobby.
I don't know, when it comes to magic, I'm not sure, but it's like with acting, people kind of see it as a hobby and something that's like, oh, just go on stage or you just go in front of the camera and say your lines. Like that's all you have to do. And it's like there's so much more stuff that needs to be done. Like you need to be your own businessman, you need to be your own manager, and also be kind of creative and a bit weird and unique, but also have to be interesting enough for people to come over and talk to and be able to network and stuff. So you kind of have to be every type of person.
Yeah.
It had an Oscar for the best documentary, Sugar Man.
It's amazing. It's really interesting. But I mean, I think that's what Bird did quite well. I think it showed that it was a very creative man who just didn't know how to network properly.
Yes, and also he was quite lucky to find people who who would sort of put him on the right tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
How much his wife fought for him to
Exactly.
get.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Because I mean, I think we all know people who are extremely talented, but who may never succeed because they just they're not good businessmen. They and if they don't meet the right type of people,
Yeah.
or you might find someone who's just going to take advantage of you. We've
Yeah.
all heard stories of bad managers who embezzle all the money and stuff like that. So
Yeah, the famous one would be Elvis's manager at the end. I think is the go-to when people think of just riding out of somebody else's work. There's a great TV series which I will find the name of for linking because my parents watched it. Where you see Elvis in one episode and it's just very tragic, like near the end of his life. It's about the music industry in that time. I'll have to look it up because I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's not Booba or Tap.
I don't think so.
Have you ever watched that?
No.
So Bruce Campbell is an Elvis with the
All right. Okay. Wow.
massive cancer on his dick.
What?
And there's I think it's
Like a tumor?
it's weird. It's the weirdest thing ever. It's in the likes of what you would put. So yesterday I went to see Troll 2, The Room, and Booba Tap.
Oh,
Yeah,
Right.
it's weird.
Uh,
One of those movies.
that's a weird night for
Yeah,
you,
it's a
Yann.
C movie.
A sea movie. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not really. You feel like you're thrown into the life of this guy. There's no structure, and you're just in there, and it's a bit disturbing at first. That's right, but once again, it's really because it was 2 a.m. that I was checking the time, but I could have done without checking the time for at least half of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like it's a collection of scenes. Like I feel that it doesn't feel like a movie. It feels like you're experiencing someone's life, which I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. Really.
I did have a theory, and it might be kind of my weirdness seeping through, but it seems a little bit like how Charlie Parker may have thought of his own life, like, because he's so scattered and so like different. Maybe this is the way that he sees his own life, in like a series of like kind of scenes and not in like a fluid lifetime.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was something like reflecting.
Because it feels like a junkie watching his own life.
And in fact, when in that scene when he dies, when he's got his heart attack, you can actually see some flashbacks as well, going back. So it might, give credence to your theory that yes, maybe it might be, maybe the whole film was just like him just having a heart attack and just reflecting back on his life.
A question: do you think you would enjoy it as much if it was told in a chronological order? What do you think, all of you? Or does the fact that it is scattered add to its enjoyment?
I think it would have been more of an immediate enjoyment, like Whiplash, right? Like, you'd watch it and you'd not look at the time, and you wouldn't think about, oh God, this is so boring or so slow, or, all those thoughts going through your head. And then afterwards thinking, oh, actually, maybe I did enjoy that. Like, Whiplash was immediately like engrossing and, oh my God, this is so good. And the last scene, and, you could immediately after it finished with like, that was an incredible film. Whereas this one is kind of like a slow burner, and that also shouldn't really be tossed aside. Like that can also be a good thing.
Yeah.
No, that's that. You have to give it a chance. That's a whole a good 2 hour and 40 minutes chunk of your life there.
Yeah, and I am definitely more interested in this guy as a person, and also, like I want to listen to jazz all the time now, and I'm kind of more interested in that time and feeling. So I think it kind of did its job.
Yeah, I think I quite like the fact that the story is kind of scattered. There's no, I mean, you were saying that Yann was saying there's no structure. I think there is a kind of structure in this weird framework, or time frame. But I wouldn't necessarily compare it to a film like Whiplash. I think I would maybe compare it to something like Ray, because it's a biopic as well, and it's almost kind of the same era. And I think that if it was just chronological, then I would have found it boring, because you just know what is going to happen.
Yeah. What I meant and mean is the standard Hollywood structure.
Yeah.
3 acts.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there is obviously method to
the madness.
Charlie's madness and Eastwood's madness, because I checked and there was the guy who wrote the script for this. I think he only did that in his career, pretty much. And I didn't find anything saying that it was lifted from a biography or something. So that's pretty good. I don't know how they gathered all this from.
It seems like his wife sort of played a big part in this, because that was in the credits at the end of the film.
Yes,
that,
invaluable. Yeah. Right. Indeed. Yes. They made it clear that she had an invaluable contributions.
I think Red, what's his name? Red Rudolph. Red something? Rodney?
I think it's Red, yeah.
Yeah.
I think also talked to the production team. There you go.
Robert Roland Chudnik.
Yeah.
Red Rodney, yeah.
I think he spoke to production team as well. So they and also I looked at an overview of Charlie Parker's life, and it is so true. Like, all the things that they show happened in real life. And so it's totally about his life. Like, there's no fiction at all.
Cool. We haven't seen Ray, actually. Did you? I haven't, for sure.
I haven't seen it, no.
Okay.
But that's one to put down on the book.
As the whole point of my little story at the start, that's why Bird came to mind when we wanted to have you back before you left, Francis.
Right.
Yes.
But most of the stuff that I know about, and we are actually going to cover them this at some point. Like I've added That Thing You Do.
Okay.
which I just discovered 2 days ago. There is a extended version, 40 minutes, 40 additional minutes. In the theatrical cut, we see Charlize Theron only 10 seconds, and she has many scenes in the extended version.
Huh, okay.
So that's I'm glad she made it big now, because in that thing you do, she only had 10 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah.
But in the extended she had scenes, so that's cool. Yeah, and Empire Records. Obviously, we talked about that. The fact that we're going to do an episode soon. Yeah.
There's another thing I wanted to discuss. This movie was a flop. Like, it made nothing. It
lost a lot of
It
money.
made $2 million at the box office. And I'm wondering, it is a difficult movie to sell, actually. Because if you think in the way that America makes trailers for movies, they take all the highlights and they try and like show you what the story is going to be. There's even a case nowadays that trailers show too much of a movie, really. And I kind of agree with that, actually.
Oh, yes.
But it makes sense because this movie is very hard to describe. But after seeing it, it's like, yeah, I enjoyed this movie, but I couldn't tell somebody what happened, like straight out, like, oh, then this and this and this and this. You'd go, yeah, I watched this movie, you should watch it. Or if you're into this sort of thing, you should watch it.
Yeah, to just go like something like it's the life of this guy who became a legend of bebop and jazz. And,
yeah.
But yeah, to...
I think as well, like, he's not mainstream wise. If you're not totally into jazz and bebop and and that era, like, you're not going to know who this guy is. In terms of like Elvis Presley, everyone knows who that is, even though if they're not a fan of the genre. But sadly, not everyone's going to know who this guy is. So I think as well, there's partly that, like, oh, do you want to see a biopic of Charlie Parker? Oh, who's that? Like, why would I want to see the life of someone that I didn't know? So mainstream wise, I can understand why people wouldn't immediately go and it's going to immediately put bums on seats. Like, it's not that kind of film.
Is that the kind of music you're listening to? Because I knew some of the names: Thelonious Monk, Dizzy Gillespie, Duke Ellington. I knew it, but I really can't, for the life of me, hum any tune.
It's a bit difficult to hum bebop.
Yeah,
Just a wee bit.
It is.
Yeah. I just mean mainstream. Like, obviously, if you're into it, you're gonna know who these people are. But I just mean if you go to a random person on the street, they might not.
Yeah.
You know, so that's probably why it didn't. Like, it wouldn't be the same as if it was.
Well, I think that was probably Eastwood's intention to do it. I think that he knew that he was taking a risk, financially, because it's not. Again, if you compare it to something like Ray, I mean, you've never watched it, but you know who Ray Charles is.
Yeah, of course.
I think that pretty much everybody does. Whereas Charlie Parker is like, who's Charlie Parker? I've never heard of him.
Yeah.
I've heard of him, obviously, but Eastwood. We all know that he's a big fan of blues, and he produced a whole series on blues as well. I think with Martin Scorsese as well. So he's a big fan of blues and jazz. He's also a musician, and so I think that his intention was just to say, I'm just going to basically make people know about this guy, because I think that he's inspired a lot of people. So I'm just going to show, who this guy was and how topical he is today.
Yeah, that's one thing you can't deny as well. Like, even if you didn't enjoy the film, the scenes where you hear him play or whatever were amazing. Like, that is incredible musical talent, and either way, like, there are scenes that you'll never forget, because it was just incredible how and like, that's like a super difficult thing to do, to like go off the main track of every other instrument around you and then go back to it and then kind of do different things. Like, that's not something that everyone can do. even if they are like classically trained.
That's the kind of thing I realize you have to actually give a chance to the product, like let the thing in. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, whatever the subject, I watched, I think it was a TV movie many years ago about Bobby Fischer, and suddenly it was all about chess, and I was crazy about chess and everything. There's so many different topics and everything.
Yeah.
If you just, I'm not into football, which I do, but I'll probably watch Green Street at some point because it was so
Yes.
important for you, Anouk, that's the reason enough, I'd say. But football, I really am not making any effort. I'm really not really convinced I'll still watch the finale. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. I mean,
Yeah.
even I get bored there, but the World Cup is kind of crazy because sometimes you're watching two matches a day, and it's like, okay, now I'm even bored. Like, and I don't watch like smaller club stuff. Like, it's just World Cup. But
I gotta say though, for this one, it's 20 years. Last time we maybe we won in the middle. I'm not sure, but sometime we won in '98.
yeah,
There was this huge Brazil France 3-0, right? So
Yeah.
France Brazil, and now it's again 20 years exactly later. So it's kind of a thing, I guess, but I'm still not entirely sure. I'll watch it. I'll be around here.
France is definitely playing really well. They deserve to win.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of football, to be honest, but even though I was born in Brazil, so everyone thinks that, because I was born in Brazil, I should be a fan of football.
Street football.
Yeah. I actually prefer rugby. I think it's more of a team sport.
Yeah, I enjoy rugby more as well. Yeah.
But I think it's because I don't feel that I'm being sold a story. I love stories, and I don't really feel I am being told a story when I watch a football match. Well, that's not the point, probably. But that's probably why I won't sit through maybe on Italian TV, because apparently they add weird noises like so it's like kind of a funny.
How about the story of a man who's paid millions a month just to kick a ball?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's for 5 years, and then he spends everything and kills himself. No.
It is insane how much they are given.
Well, it's funny. In one of the previous episodes, we touched on something similar. I didn't say because I forgot, but about the fact that actors, everyone thinks that we're paid vast amounts of money, but most are struggling. There is kind of a similarity, I think, between big A-list Hollywood stars and footballers in the terms of how much they are being paid.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so the distribution of wealth, you mean, is not fair in football as well. Well, I think probably in quite a lot of industries, like the people that are starting out are working probably maybe as hard, but get paid absolutely nothing because it's, we're giving you experience.
Yeah. Exposure.
Exposure, which I love that word so much.
Hello, Scottish. I pay you an exposure.
In magic and in general, yes.
Yeah. I pay you with. I'm just going to show you the scene that you did. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
You can,
I could have done that at home, but fine.
You can use it for your show reel.
Show reel, yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway.
it's never be released anyway.
I think we're going back to what Yann, you were saying earlier on. I think that as artists, we would all very much enjoy just to be doing what it is that we love, whether it is to act or play your instrument or, do some magic. If I could just do gigs, that would be amazing. But unfortunately, you have to work to get that gig. You have to audition. You have to find, the opportunities to audition. You need to practice. And also, I think that that's something I wanted to say about that movie. I think it's quite interesting, that choice that Eastwood made. I don't know if it was intentional, because we've agreed that it sort of focuses a little bit on the business side of art, but what I find interesting is that they don't show the practice behind it. If we compare it to something like Whiplash, for example, you can see how hard the guy is training to be the best drummer, but you don't see any of that. It's almost like Charlie Parker just is naturally gifted at being a saxophone player, which I don't think he was. He's just, he spent a lot of time playing. People like Michael Brecker, for example, who's one of the best saxophone players, and he said that he would play for like 12 hours a day, and in fact he was taking some drugs just to be able to withstand the pain and stuff, so and it's quite interesting that they don't show any of that in this film.
No, they just, because I had to go see a Guardian article to actually recount how the open mic happened. And it's you see that he's being ridiculed, but you don't get at any point the sense that, okay, I've got well, not that clearly anyway. Okay, I've got ridiculed, now I'll work my ass off to become the best in the world and come back. There is a Guardian article explaining the whole thing. He said, "I'll be back," kind of a Terminator kind of thing.
Yeah, I think as well, like, even when he had the cymbal thrown at him, he was still pretty good. Like, he was better than quite a lot of saxophone players out there, I'm sure. So you kind of start off seeing him as someone who is talented anyway. And I mean, when we were at ACS, we were even taught that like, be careful of talent, because you can be naturally talented at something, but there's going to be a point where someone who's just working every single day is going to surpass your natural talent, because they had to work for it, and because you think, oh, I'm naturally talented, I'll be fine. You stop working, and then the person then just gets better, and they're the one that becomes successful, hopefully. So I think, yeah, I agree. Like, there has to be like that wasn't really shown to us, and maybe it was more than to do with his struggles with addiction. That kind of was the main problem that they kind of focused on.
Well, yeah. There's obviously the grafting, but you've got also to admit that sometimes there are some people that the luck factor.
Yeah.
Like people who just can't act for shit, but were there at the right moment, and they're good people to work with, and they will go farther than people who are tremendous naturals who are just dicks on set.
Yeah, like
some
there
people.
There are lots of actors out there that are terrible, and the only reason, and I mean, you hear it all the time, like, oh yeah, and I really enjoyed working with her or him, like the other film, so I decided to like audition them for my new film. It's like, wait, what? Like, but then again, like, I think quite a lot of industries do work like that, like, oh, we get along, so I'm going to ask you to come to my next thing, and like, it's which kind of sucks, because there are quite a lot of people that are super talented and not great to talk to, or not social people, or like, they're sometimes even autistic, and they can't, so yeah, I mean, lots of problems.
Yeah, it's just like well, a bit probably less than Trainspotting. This film doesn't lead you to doing drugs yourself.
No way. Jesus.
Yeah.
Because again, I only realized after we talked about Trainspotting that the single reason probably that I never did drugs up until 5 years ago was because of that movie, Trainspotting. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't shy away from the positive and the negative. Trainspotting is accurate.
Yeah.
I definitely feel. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, because that's also kind of important to talk about, the fact that drugs, are great. Like, we can't lie about it, but...
I mean, natural drugs produced by your body are also drugs. And
yeah, and also, well, that's also a really interesting point. It's a little bit, not really, but America obviously now has this massive problem because, and the way that Charlie Parker obviously started drugs was that he was in a car accident or something and got addicted to morphine, and then because you can't get the morphine again because obviously your doctor stops it, you get addicted to heroin. And that's happening a lot in America because they will give, really intense painkillers for like the stupidest things, like, oh, you need to get your teeth cleaned, here's some Vicodin, because that was a little bit painful. And then because you can't get those drugs anymore because they're legal and you need a reason for it, you don't have the prescription, you then go to the illegal stuff. And that's why there's such a bad heroin, crystal meth, kind of those A-class drugs problems in especially America. So there's also that part of the film.
I think I must be addicted to falling in love and heartbreaks.
Yeah, there is that. I think that's an actual thing.
Probably. Probably.
There's have you seen Love on Netflix?
I started to watch, yeah.
Because she has a relationship and love.
Yes.
Addiction.
Addiction. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, yeah. It's sex and love addiction. Yeah, there's the term for that.
Sex and love addiction.
Yeah, I googled that at the time. Yeah, there is a medical kind of a condition. Yeah. I think it's sex and something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's probably since I've seen that I actually wondered. Not at that level because she's quite heavy on the sex and love.
Yeah, and there's the booze that she kind of self-medicates on, but yeah.
Yeah. So do you have in mind anything you'd like to add on any subject or the film?
Obviously race is very important and we need to talk about it. But I did quite like how it wasn't laid on too thick in this film. I think quite a lot of the times if you have something that you're talking about a time that was racially charged, it's sometimes like so not over the top, but it's just kind of laid on really thick, and it's kind of the only thing that was important to talk about. When I quite liked how in this film it was very subtly there, but also you saw how normalized it was and how that's also a problem.
That's actually a very good point. It made me realize how ignorant I was, because at one point I was, wait, it's like mid-40s. The guy is massively popular. He's a black guy. Wasn't there supposed to all hate blacks at the time?
Yeah, I mean,
and it's obviously a north-south thingy, which I didn't really remember or know about clearly, about all the Jim Crow laws and all that kind of.
Yeah, it's also it's a lot more complicated than that. It's also like, especially then it was like fine to see black people as entertainment for white people. Like, so you'd see quite a lot of black people in entertainment, but in other walks of life it would have been harder to see. And I guess America, it's still talked about that there's a massive problem with that too. And still now you see black people as like something that you watch or is entertaining, or so it's probably the same thing that's happening here. Of course this man is very talented, but so it's very complicated, the race thing, but
yeah, it's probably
I liked how it was subtly put in rather than something like it was really racist
shoved down your throat.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I quite like about Eastwood in general. He's very subtle. I mean, this film really touches upon a lot of subjects. Of course, it's a historical film, so you talk about race and talk about business in arts and drugs. Even the way that the film is structured or not structured is also very interesting. The acting as well, I think. And talking about subtlety, I remember Eastwood's actor studio interview where he was talking about how he actually starts a scene with his actors, and it seems like he's also very gentle and very subtle with his actors, the way that he directs them. Like, he's not the type of director who's going to say, okay, action, he's just like, he would start a scene just like this, talking, so he would let you talk, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, so let's go. Let's just start now. Mm-hmm. And, so I think you can really see it in all his films. It's like you're sort of eased into the film.
Yeah,
Probably,
that's a good point.
Probably start coming from the fact that he is himself primarily known as an actor. So he acts. So he obviously knows how an actor thinks, which is always the problem when you have directors who have no idea what. It's like more angry.
Yeah, can you be more angry? Like, "Ugh, what do you mean?" Yeah.
I mean, Paul is cool because he has some tricks, a magician, obviously, to get you where you need to be, which was when we did the Darkfall trailer. I was totally unsure about what I was doing, and it was pointing me toward things and using trickery to get the acting he wanted out of me. It was so cool.
He's also just a very nice I know it's quite a generic word, but he's just very like gentle, and the way that he'll like talk to you, it's like he's talking to you and that's it. You're the only person that matters, and this is very important to him and to what he wants to do. So I think you then also have like an added interest in the film and the project and the people around you and the way that you act, because he cares about it so much.
Yeah, you see, he tremendously respects and loves actors. His dream since childhood has been to be a filmmaker, which is becoming a reality every day, more and more.
Totally.
And he clearly knows. I'm always amazed and impressed every time I watch something with his name attached to it. To be honest.
Yeah. He's definitely.
Yeah. So now that we've touched on indeed, it was a very good, important point, the race thing. Do you have anything you feel to need to add?
I think I'm good. I'm good, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we could go into the rating and then add a few questionnaire questions, because I think they were not there last time you came.
Sure. So, Anouk, Yann and Francis, was Bird good, bad, or just plain standard? Starting with our guest, Francis.
I would say good, yes.
Anouk?
Yeah, I agree. But I think I'm going to add important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And you have to be in the right frame of mind. Like, don't watch this if you're like you'd rather watch like something like Shrek 3.
Specific go-to
it
there.
Needs
Shrek
to be,
3.
It's because we tried to watch the other night and it's so terrible. But it's like very easy watching and kind of like fluff.
You need to have 2 hours and a half in front of you.
Yeah, exactly. And like an interest in watching a film.
I think it's one of the films that I would expect to find at the GFT and at Cineworld. You know, it's like it's not going to attract the same crowd. You know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Kind of indie
kind
style.
Art house.
Art house, yeah.
Yann?
Good, with the flair of... Well, this one is difficult. I would...
Difficult?
No. I was careful about this specific word, but intense? Like, engaging.
Yeah, engaging works.
Yeah.
I'll say good with the flair added of search for it, i.e. it's a film worth watching if you're searching for something like this. I often use the phrase, if it was on, I could watch in the background. This is definitely not one of those movies. This is one of these sit down to watch the whole thing sort of movie. So yeah, good. But like Anouk said, be in the right frame of mind for it. Yeah.
Okay, so we added a few questions in the questionnaire since we saw you last.
Okay.
I think, yeah. If you had the opportunity to go and view any culture from the past, like if you were completely invisible, had a Babel fish in your ear and walked amongst the Romans or cave people or Native Americans before the European came, who would you choose?
So if I had the opportunity to see what? Sorry, there was one word I couldn't catch. So
to travel back in time, to view any culture from the past.
All right, any culture from the past. That's a very good question. Right now, I would say probably ancient Egypt, because I'm quite interested in it. I think it's a very well, amazing culture. I mean, thinking about, I mean, it's so old. You can think of Cleopatra, who's the last queen of Egypt, who's actually closer to us historically than the first pharaohs who, designed the pyramids. So, I mean, it just shows, how vast that period is, and just so many things we don't know yet, and that we may never know. So yes, I probably would like to just catch a glimpse of what happened at that time. But I would like to be able to come back as well. I don't want to get stuck in the past.
No. It sounds very scary as well.
Cleopatra 7 of the Ptolemaic period. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
with a
Yes.
long nose. If it had been shorter, the face of history would have been changed, kind of thing.
Wow.
And it's a very important point in one of the Asterix. No, I think it's in literature, kind of thing.
Well, Asterix is literature.
Yeah,
Oh,
yes,
How
yes,
dare you?
of course. My nephew started to watch the 12 Tasks, les 12 travaux d'Astérix, in French, obviously,
Oh, of course.
on Netflix, and it's awesome to watch those again.
Yeah.
There's old. Anyway, there are 2 bonus questions, though, guys. Whatever you want to ask Francis.
Oh gosh. Oh, pressure.
Would you rather have the skills of Charlie Parker or our good man Ray? Not Sugar Ray. Parker. What's his name again? Ray Charles. That's it.
Would I rather have the skills of Ray Charles or Charlie Parker?
Yeah.
Right. Well, being a pianist, I would probably like to play a little bit more like Ray Charles. Yeah, I would. I guess. I mean, both of them they totally revolutionized not jazz but also music in general. But I think, yeah, if I had to choose between Ray Charles and Charlie Parker, yeah, probably more Ray Charles. Yes. Yeah.
So if you could go back in time and be involved in the music industry, which era would you go to?
Oh, that's a good one.
Well, to me, the best era for music is either the 1960s or 70s. I think there were just so many amazing musicians. I like that era. In arts in general, not just in music, because it was back in the days when people were not afraid to mix different things together, and and people were discovering new things, new cultures, new drugs, obviously, but
New people.
yeah, and nowadays, even in jazz, I've seen so many people who say, like, for example, if you play an electric bass instead of double bass. Some people will say, "Oh, it's not real jazz," And I'm like, "What do you mean by real jazz? What is real jazz? Is it Charlie Parker? Is it Chick Corea? Is it I don't know. Like, what is real jazz? Tell me." And I think it's the same thing in a lot of fields nowadays. Some people say, this is the way that it should be done. Film should be done this way. Music should be done that way. And I find it pretty interesting, going back to, the era that we're living in right now. I think, reflecting back to, the 1960s, 70s, or even 80s, they had nothing, technologically speaking. Nowadays, in just a couple of clicks, you can just find everything you want. But we just tend to, stay, and just... wear blinkers and just keep doing the things that we like, and not a lot of people are not open-minded enough to just discover new things, even like that film, for example, Bird. I think it's it's one of those things one of those films that you would need to watch to sort of open your mind a little bit. And so I'm quite nostalgic towards those eras of 1970s and 80s, even though I never actually experienced them. So I find it quite interesting that I'm nostalgic about something that I didn't even experience myself. But I would like to see some of that coming back, because I think that we've got such an amazing thing. I mean, look at this. We can do something live. People can just watch us from everywhere. We can all be connected, and I just find it, it's amazing what we can do. But so far, I don't have my phone right now, but in your phone, I mean, most smartphones have got more computer power than NASA had when they launched someone on the moon.
Oh God!
But we just use it to take pictures of what we eat.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
There is
So I would just love the 2020s to just be an era of of finally just grasping the present of what we have right now, and just doing something new and not being limited by borders.
Here,
In
here.
all sense of the word.
Definitely.
There is a Jimmy Kimmel video back to when it was funny, where with the
Burn.
October 2000. I think it was 21st of October 2015. It was supposed to be the date when Marty came back. So you have Marty and Doc on his stage, and it's one of the lines of Doc, like, "Oh, what's this thing? It looks like it's like what you just said." And Jimmy Kimmel was like, "Yeah, we use it to take pictures of cats and selfies." Kind of, yeah. So
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. That's insane. Okay, we are about to finish now. Just a few words to say. We'll also have Shine. We'll talk about during this musical summer. Empire Records, Rampage. It's not at all in the musical summer, but it was interesting enough, and that I wanted us to talk about it. Hereditary, that we're going to record on Friday the 13th in a few days. And what was it? Oh, and Ghostbusters, Answer the Call.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
So, well, yeah, anyone has anything to add or not?
Not me.
Not right now, anyway. No.
No.
Okay, so thank you again for listening.
Thank you, guys.
I don't know if you... Let me see what we recorded yesterday. Yeah, you'll probably hear about the 10,000 listens before, but if you didn't, or if you did, thanks again. 10,000, that's huge.
Super cool.
We'll probably do we'll do a bundle this and the 1 year anniversary on the 19th of August.
Yes.
Do a double thingy for that. So thank you again for listening. We are the Good, the Bad, and the Just Plain Standard podcast, and we were
Adam.
Anouk.
Yann and
Francis.
bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.